draft?
So coming into the first draft, yesterday we did not manage to see that of Impunity play, but all in all, I think the draft will still be centered around very early aggression, especially coming out from Impunity. We know Quartervore has this particular quirk of actually buying a weapon blade into a boots and then go into the backs of the enemies to try to take farm, steal farm. And a lot of times we saw in the previous week when they were up against Infamous, if I'm not wrong and if I remember correctly, when Quartervore actually building spell sword on every single roam it
Mm.
was on.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It would be Catherine. It would be Grace. He'd buy a spell sword with that early game weapon blade. But I think the rotation he likes to do, where the carry and jungler start their backs together, he rotates through the lane to go to the enemy backs. Won't work today against Nebulae. They'll have obviously looked it up. They'll know exactly what's likely to happen and just be ready to counter it. If the Catherine ban first ban is pretty standard, I'd expect Grace or maybe even Idris just to be banned away now by Nebulae. So
Yep,
by Impunity.
definitely. I mean, for the side of Impunity, they have got a lot of bans for them, but we saw a decent pattern coming up from them in the previous week. It's that they do not quite, pick out the roamers or the captains first. Instead, they would just try to secure the carries because in the current meta or in drafting phase in general, a lot of players, a lot of teams would try to secure their roamers. But as for Impunity, because Quartervore, firstly, is a shout call of the team. Secondly, he has a wide pool of captain heroes. I mean, at this point in time on the fold itself, on captains would be six, and those off meta or rather off tanks would be that of Batiste, and that just adds up to about 10 or so captains. But all in all, I think Quartervore will be very comfortable allowing his team to just secure the carries that he wants first.
Yeah, certainly. If your captain is comfortable on most or all of the meta captains at the moment, you have got a lot to choose from, and they just cannot ban them all away from you. You're going to be left with something you're happy with. Even Finn, we've seen a resurgence of in some other regions. So it'd be interesting to see if that is again what Impunity decide to go for. Maybe banning away the Idris or Taka. We did not expect a Taka ban. Why do you think they've done that? Do you think they want to play Celeste? Because obviously Taka does quite well against mages and squishy heroes. Do you think maybe we're going to see a Celeste pick Black Feather ban from Impunity?
Well, there is one thing about Taka, it's that in Southeast Asia at least, we have went away with the Storm Crown into Aftershock build. We are now going for the Shatter Glass into Clockwork, into Broken Myth. So we have made that transition, that phase through, and that particular build on Taka can really just half health any squishy heroes right there. So maybe Impunity is wary of this Taka and thus just wants to ban it out. But for themselves, they picked up the Grace in counter to the Lance being picked up by the side of Nebulae.
Yes. Now, with the Taka ban, it does suggest they want to do a brew. Sorry, not a brew. So they want to do either a protect the carry comp with two captains and a squishy mage at the back line. But if they try and ban the Black Feather now, then you know Celeste is going to be banned away from them most likely. But they're going to ban the Crawl, so they're leaving Black Feather open, which means Celeste is unlikely to be picked. They could just go for Black Feather themselves if it is left open, and that would be a reasonably strong draft from Impunity. They have a lot of flexibility, and they just have to last pick to counter whatever Nebulae want. Nebulae here, I think they can ban. There's not anything they need to ban. They could get rid of the glaive if that's something they don't want to play against. Yeah, they are going to do that. So now I'd expect Black Feather pick from Impunity here. And it is.
There you go.
And what do you think? What comp are Nebulae going to go for? They've got lots of stuff they can do. What are you expecting? Maybe a weapon kestrel? What do you think, Luxuria?
Well, Nebulae really just rely on trophies on that carry role, on that mage carry role. We saw yesterday when they went with the Lance Catherine and of course the CP Idris just to chain their CCs together. But today, I think we'll be seeing something largely similar. Of course, trophies would probably be on that Sky and Iron will die on that Lance. If not, then if Delphi is playing for them, then at least Delphi will be on that Lance, and then Iron will die can be on that Sky. But But Impunity on Sky hasn't quite been seen very often. He's usually that weapon, or rather the weapon jungler of the team, and Trophies would generally want to be on that, mage role. Unless, of course, if they've shaked up their roster this time, removed the starters, subbed in some other players for their own team, then we might see a very different draft coming out from the side of Nebulae.
Yeah, I know it sounds weird. I'd quite like to see an Alpha as the last pick with a CP Sky lane, because it does really well against Blackfeather, and it does really well if they want to pick any squishy Crystal Power Mage as the last pick. But that's just me. We saw a little bit of Alpha yesterday in EU once, but she's not seen a lot of love very recently. But yeah, I think it is much more likely that we could even see a Grumpjaw. That is a nice pick for Angry Guy. He does love to play heroes, assassins like Grumpjaw, and because obviously Glaive and Taka have all been taken off the fold, there aren't that many comfort picks left.
Well, definitely. So the draft will be restarted, and all in all, it will be very, very similar drafting. We'll be seeing a Blackfeather coming out for the side of Impunity, and for the side of Nebulae. Honestly, they have quite a variety of heroes they can go for their last pickup. I really do not think. There you go. So, Angry Udai will be on that Lance, and we have Trophies once again on that Sky, and Delphire will be on the Arden. If not, then Troughless will be on that Arden. Whereas for the side of Impunity, they can immediately just secure that Celeste. Celeste will do relatively well, if not, then at least a Scarf going up against a CP Sky in the early game, or even a CP Idris will do relatively well.
Yeah, the problem with picking something like Celeste or Scarf is that Weapon Lance does really well against you. Weapon Lance just can go in and will delete any backline mage that you've got until Grace hits level 6. And even then, if you get a good stun timing with the Githian Wall, you can burst them down, force the Grace ult, just back off for a couple of seconds, and then go straight back in with another Impale. So I think it's risky to go that. I think Idris would be a really smart pick as well, because he can outpoke Sky. And the hyper carry comp just does not work if you have as much dive as Blackfeather Idris does. So I agree with you there. They could go for the Celeste or Scarf, but I think that would be a slightly worse pick for them.
Yep, CP Idris is still on the table, and we saw the amount of damage a Chakram can actually put out once you get your first Shattered Glass, if not then Frostburn. And we saw a rather peculiar... Ooh, oh, what a pickup. Not really expected coming out from the side of Impunity, that Castrol being picked up. But all in all, we have seen that Castrol, and we saw how they work the Castrol and how comfortable either DevQ or Blue City really is on that Castrol.
Yeah, so I would expect this to be a weapon Kestrel lane and CP Blackfeather in the jungle, just because Lance wants to go up to lane to try and stop Kestrel farming up, and so by having a CP Blackfeather in the jungle, you're kind of tempting Lance to try and invade your jungle, because CP Blackfeather is very weak early on, and that will allow your weapon Kestrel to just farm up and become to a almost unstoppable point at the later point in the game. They could obviously do a weapon Blackfeather lane, CP Kestrel jungle, but I think that's just weak on both fronts, because CP Kestrel could be invaded and Blackfeather can easily be ganked by the Lance, and so he has free reign among either to try and win the early game advantage. I think late game it will almost certainly be in Impunity's favour, because they have 2 carries as opposed to the probably just 1 and a half captain, half carry from Nebulae. But I think if Nebulae can get an early to mid game advantage, snowball with the Lance, and allow Sky to get 4 items before Kestrel can, then they'll be in a good position.
Yep, I just saw the player line up for the side of Nebulae, and something intrigued me. So we will be seeing Cyajin actually playing on this particular game. And if the viewers do not know who Cyajin is, he may seem like a new starter or a new player that came out of nowhere, but honestly, he is just Kirchhoff's from Impunity from the last season, if I'm not wrong. I need someone to actually correct me on that if I got it wrong. But, with Cyajin, I spoke to Delphire, the captain, or, the captain of Nebulae, and he says that Cyajin is their secret weapon coming into the Vainglory 8 Southeast Asia. So I'm really excited to see how he's going to perform as his role. as a roamer, because I mean you are the shot caller, you will be, you know, the playmaker if you're on that roam role. And we saw Guessing X yesterday from Brand Esports on that lance, and he put out so much work as well. So let's see if Cyajin can actually and will actually be the secret weapon for the side of Nebulae.
Yeah, definitely. It is interesting to see a roster change on the second day. They must clearly be comfortable with these three people, and I do agree with you because yesterday we saw some fantastic Lance plays, but they've decided that it wasn't good enough, so they're just going to swap out, put in Cyajin on the captain, and we're going to see an aggressive rotation from Impunity going in as 3 to try and pop a scout trap. Cyajin's not going to have that for very long, and they're just obviously going to try and take away this mid-trim. But actually, Cyajin gets the first hit that brings it towards Nebulae's side. It's secured by Impunity. Defq gets that, and now they're going in. Cyajin going very low. He's going to have to force Healing Flask, and the flare will spot out where he's going. That'll be a kill for Blue City on this Crystal Power Blackfeather, and an early game first blood to Impunity.
Yep, first blood on the secret weapon of Nebulae. Well. Honestly, Impunity for all the Southeast Asia teams will definitely be the role model, be the threat of the fold. I mean, they have made a name for themselves. They beat the champions of the previous split, or rather the previous season. We had Infamous sitting very high up there in the previous season, but Impunity just came in during lives and put up quite a show, to be honest. It took Infamous to a game of 5, winning them 3-2. It was a rather close matchup all in all, but with that, Impunity's confidence definitely is going up the roof, and in the recent weeks itself, we've seen Impunity just putting in so much work. And like I mentioned before in the previous week, it's that Impunity, they train up to 11 hours every single day just to keep up team synergy and of course their team comms and what have you not. So honestly, you know, for the side of Nebulae, it will be a tough fight.
It certainly will. Impunity are slightly ahead at the moment. Iron Greedeye is rotating up, and Trophies with the double weapon blaze, yeah, is most likely still going to be a CP Sky. That's probably just helping him out in the early game, because going double weapon would just be such a big risk with not much reward. Because when you go a hyper carry comp, you want them to be prioritizing defense against your hyper carry, and then Lance is just free to deal damage. Because they think that he's not going to be anything significant. Whereas if they go double weapon, then they can just itemize against Trophies, and Iron Greedeye would easily be able to, so it wouldn't be able to do any damage. Yeah, Defq is going to be pushed back in lane, but he'll be able to farm up pretty effectively. And we saw early game aggression from Impunity. I'm pretty sure that was just to make sure that Nebulae didn't get the early game advantage, which they can do online.
Yep, definitely. That is something I must agree with you on as well. But honestly, looking at Nebulae's team comp, they are really just working for the late game. As we all know, Trophies on this Sky is a relatively late game, all know, as a hero himself. He really needs that Sorrow Blade, if not the Serpent's Mask. Some people like to build the Serpent's Mask into the Breaking Point and the Tornado Trigger. That is one thing that I've seen quite often. Very much like that Petal build, the weapon power petal build that we've seen as well. So coming into this game, the side of Nebulae really just want to just farm up and get all the items necessary to put out enough damage in that late game, because we all know Weapon Sky, what you excel at is really just zoning out the enemies, and on top of that as well, it's your mobility, the fact that you can just, you know, dance around the enemy, so much so the enemy cannot catch up to you. And without a weapon Blackfeather, that means that the side of Nebula can fully utilize Sky's mobility, because a CP Blackfeather really wants to just poke down with it on point and finish you all with that execute.
Speaking of the on point, that is going on to Trophies, forcing the Healing Flask out a little bit early for this team fight. Looks like you're going to miss the second one though. Iron Greedeye rotating up to lane. Hasn't shopped yet. There's actually a lot of gold on Nebulae, so they do not want to fight at the moment. Just going to back off, and we're going to find out. Trophies picks up a Shattered Glass, so it will be CP Sky. I agree that's the smart decision. And what was that? Oh, Luxuria.
No, luxury, yeah. I like how you say that, yeah. But that bow was because it was really unexpected for me because I thought Iron Gyudai would settle for that on-hit lance and trophies will go for, you know, that weapon Sky in which, you know, you can just dance around and just put out damage with your basic attacks. Whereas now, with a CP Sky, what happens then, honestly, is Blue City can just really just easily trade out with you because on point, or rather not on point, but your lock-on is now necessary, and with the amount of poke that's coming through from Impunity, it will be very, very difficult, and the fact that Quarter 4
there's going to be an Impale onto DefQ, not doing that much, but DefQ is doing an awful lot back onto Saiyajin. He is forced to back off very far behind his target. There's the Impale, does miss. Iron Gyudai is sitting up. Saiyajin tries to save his life, but dies in the process. Truffy's going to put down the Death above, and the nice core barrage hitting up Blue Steve, but he needs to be careful of DefQ. There are minions to try and body block that Glimmer shot. DefQ popping the healing blast. Now Blue Steve is not going to walk into that Impale. Easy on point on Iron Gyudai, and the Rose Offensive under turret. He gets pushed back, but he runs offensive hearts forward. The turret shot does not quite do enough, and now Impunity, turret siege, weapon kestrel, easy tier 1 turret.
And this is what I'm talking about. Without your lock-on on a CP,
the fire's going to continue though. Impale does actually land, but he has no vision on DefQ as he runs away invisible, and that's going to be a lovely stun on the Death above and the active camera. Iron Gyudai going solo, but the fountain was picked up by Saiyajin when he died and used to keep Iron Gyudai alive. Truffy's wants more. DefQ's going to back off, and I don't think Nebulae are going to get anything from this. The fight now is over.
Yep, and that was what I was talking about. We saw Trophies trying his bestest to just put on the lock-on onto Blue City, but because of how mobile the CP Black Feather really is, there is really no way to just put on your Forward Barrage, which will be the bulk of your CP damage as a Sky at least. And that is the issue that, you know, we can't quite see. As CP Sky, you really just want to lock on, put out your Forward Barrage, but the amount of poke coming through from DefQ and that of Blue City is just way too much as compared. I mean, damage for damage wise, they definitely have got more poke as compared to you. Both of the teams cannot quite hard engage, except for Iron Gyudai and Saiyajin on that Arden. They can hard engage, true, but Trophies really just want to stay at the back lines, really just want to poke. And Sky being picked out on Trophies is something that's very questionable to me, because we saw yesterday he doesn't quite play as, you know, a weapon carry. He plays a lot of his CP carry heroes as a mage, like a mage.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be interesting. Actually, Impunity take away the gold mine due to a slightly poor rotation from Nebulae. They just let them get it. And the level 5 infusion from DefQ is about to run out, but Blue Team already picked one up. So Impunity using those infusions well to get an early game lead. Iron Gyudai, you said you thought he was going to go an on-hit build with Weapon Sky, but it looks like he's just going for a lot of tank, possibly even a fountain with that, a second fountain with the Oak Heart and Light Shield. Obviously could go into Aegis, but we have seen some double fountain with hyper carry comp, and it works really well as long as you don't accidentally fountain at the same time, which is quite it's actually quite hard to do. There's a triple impale, blind impale I do believe, and a double death from above stun. So Nebulae starting very well, but Kestrel wants to go in. DefQ going invisible, the actual coming. Impale does actually miss, but that is a faint of heart onto the minion, so that the on point can hit on Scruffy. There's the second on point. So much damage, forcing the Vanguard. One shot, one kill is available, but will not quite be enough unless this next on point lands from Blue City. One shot, not quite enough. He's going to boots in, and he's actually going to on point onto Iron Gyudai, who will come up roll over the wall. Not the best place to use. Another 1 point does chunk down Iron Gyudai, and this will be another turret siege, weapon kestrel, easy tier 2 turret for Impunity.
Yep, and honestly, if you'd ask Saiyajin though,
going to do the gauntlet, very defensive. Blue City is actually going to fall. Fountain used by Saiyajin to keep it alive. Iron Gyudai missing the glimmer shots by DefQ. That's a line intervention, not enough. The 4 Barrage doing so much work from Trophies. Shatterglass clockwork. Who needs the Frostburn when you can just kill, get the ace, Nebulae, turn it around.
Yep, a very good turnaround coming up from Nebulae, and I really think it was just complacency coming through from Impunity that allowed that turnaround. But all in all, I must say, very good play from Iron Gyudai with those Githian wall, and of course we cannot forget that Trophies. He is still the, you know, the damage thrower, the damage outputter in this game, and that should be your key target. Granted, you can get Iron You Die low, you can remove Sergeant from the fold, in which they did. But Trophies was allowed free reign over that particular fight and just allowed to put out so much more damage as compared to, say, Blue City or DevQ, which had ran out of arrows then, or Glimmer Shots then, and thus, you know, the side of Nebulae can just turn that fight around.
Yeah, as soon as Trophies gets target lock onto DefQ, 1-4 barrage, he's going to absolutely melt. 3 damage items completed already on Trophies. DefQ has no defense. Black Feather's got a little bit, got double tier 1. And we see Metal Jacket on Iron Die and Saiyajin. That is very good team-wide, discipline to think, yeah, I want to get some damage, I want to get some Atlas, I want to get maybe a Crucible, but I need this full Metal Jacket as early as possible. So DefQ now will be doing almost, not nothing, but doing much less damage to the tanks of Nebulae. But still, those Glimmer Shots are going to hurt Trophies an awful lot. It's all about who can get the poke first. It looks like Impunity will be the better team to poke, with 2 poke heroes as opposed to just 1 from Nebulae. But if Lance lands a good Impale, it will be a pretty easy team fight for Nebulae.
It will be. I mean, Lance just have to land the Impale, probably chain it into a Githian wall, followed by a lock-on from Sky, and then a death from above, trapping all 3 members of Impunity, and then...
Impale, there's just going to be a single onto Quarter Bar, but he does have to use to get himself away. Fountain used as well very early. Nebulae in a great fight here. They have all their actives up, and there is nothing but Infusion picked up for Bluxity. Nothing on Quarter for him to use. And so Quarter is like, no, guys, don't fight. I used everything to keep myself alive except for my ultimates and Echo. Now Nebulae could try and sneak a gold mine. They know Impunity's rotating up to lane. The Trophies could be out of position. It'll be okay. Full barrage for a little bit of poke, but not going to do too much. Bluxity wants to get that on point, but does not connect. Great Rose offensive to dodge the Impale, but that is the first Divine Intervention used. Stun onto Angry Dad, but the Gauntlet does come down. And a stun to Githian wall into the Gauntlet wall. Definitely going to get powered up. The Divine Intervention will keep him nice and healthy. But Trophies on the back line going to get the Fountain, keep him up. Sergeant going very low. Oh, 6 members of the fold are quite low. 1 shot, taking Trophies even lower. And he does actually Black Feather. Sky picks up the Black Feather. Now DefQ's going to try and run away. And blind! He gets it! Angry You Die with the place. Quarter will not be able to get away from this Sky. That's a frost burn. That's an ace. Nebulae of turning this game right around.
Nebulae definitely playing very, very well then. Sergeant, I mean, there's a couple of times where I saw Sergeant and I was just sitting on the edge of my chair. He just got down so low, but honestly, the only reason Nebulae can come out ahead in the team fight really was because the activatables coming out from the side of Quarterball was actually popped earlier on into the team fight, and Nebulae immediately just capitalized on that and just won that team fight. And of course, Iron User on this Lance is really a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, definitely the Impale, the blind Impale onto DefQ. No idea where he was, just think he's probably going this way, and he was. Iron does look like he's going to get a Sorrow Blade second item, so that works really well on Weapon Lance to make sure your damage scales once DefQ picks up a bit of Crystal Defense, which he has decided to go for Aegis as the 4th item as opposed to 4 damage. And Quarter forced to pop the Fountain and Crucible on himself. Once again, Nebulae poking before the fight even started on the captain, and Trophies with the Sui Strike over the wall could have been in trouble, but Impunity have backed off. And so Nebulae, once again, are in a great position because they know Fountain Crucible isn't up, but they're just going to pour home because they got a little bit of gold. Want to repop their infusions and get properly ready for the fight.
Yep, Impunity really have to rework the strategy at this point in time. They allowed Trophies to just farm up a little way too much. Currently sitting at 3 full items, and of course waiting for the Broken Myth. With that, just 4 items, build a Slumbering Husk, and honestly, Trophies can just put out so much damage with just 1 lock-on. Whereas you look over at Blue City, granted he has got his defense, and you look over at DefQ, he has got his defense as well, but they cannot quite build against that of Iron You Die and Trophies at the right amount.
There's going to be the Impale, double stun actually. Blue City going extremely low. Has got double tier 1 defense, but it's not quite enough for that tension bow block on Angry You Die. Impale does miss. That could be the Q for Impunity. No, just a couple of Glimmer Shots on point does fail. Now Nebulae rotating through Impunity's jungle, clearing out the vision. Poke from Trophies. He hasn't got a Broken Myth, so it won't be stacking up, but they have started both these fights by poking out Quarter before the fight, and the Impale does not, so the basic attack does not quite connect onto DefQ. but he's extremely low on energy, so he's forced to port home back from the base. And that is an impel onto, once again, Quadrivar slightly out of position. Will he be forced to use the Crucible and Phantom himself? He will use the water to use his boots. Echo on the gauntlet just for Quadrivar, forced Divine Intervention and Fountain. And he will probably echo that, try and Divine Intervention himself again, but it will not be enough. And Quadrivar goes down. Nebulae will not be able to get this gold mine though, because it's going to despawn. And they wasted Echo, 100-second cooldown on Arden just for the captain. Was that worth it, Luxury? Are they going to get this Kraken, or are they going to try and get an ace?
Well, if they actually push for this Kraken, then it will definitely be worth it for them. However, if they are hesitant, but as we can tell, they are not hesitant whatsoever. They will be going in to take this Kraken. However, one shot, one kill will be out for DevQ. And that, if it is sniped by DevQ, then it will be a very bad day for the side of Nebulae. However, they will be able to secure this Kraken, all good and dandy for them. And now they just have to siege with this Kraken, else this Kraken will just get very, very low before even the anchor turret.
Yeah, they are trying to farm up because Truffy's didn't have quite the gold for a Broken Myth. So he nipped down to the shop to get that, and in response, Impunity went, yep, we know you're not at this Kraken, let's just half-health it before you even fight. That's an impel onto Blue and a pushback, so there's going to be a stunt, only onto Sajin though, full barrage, chunking out Quadrivar, the block's not enough, he doesn't use the Fountain, doesn't use the ultimate, try because he didn't want to use it on himself, and that's the lock on, DevQ, that's a full barrage, not in the right direction, Druffy's could be in a lot of trouble, but they're not quite going to get the basic attack onto him. DevQ's getting poked down a little bit. Sajin could be out of position. He has not got anything except magic. He gauntlets to try and dodge the one shot, one kill, but Bluxity gets it with and on point. And the Kraken, one turret, not too great for Nebulae. I think Truffy's for barrage in not quite the right direction. He thought he could move up, but the map wasn't there for him to do so.
Yep, and one thing as well was that, granted, he did not have enough gold for that infusion or even that Broken Myth, but honestly, that Kraken had, the side of Nebulae just...
DevQ tries to face check, thinking there's no scout trap, and he does just about survive! Pale comes through, wasting the Divine Intervention, and the Angry is trying to survive, but Sajin is back up to be an ace, and Grace gets the kill with the mace in the face. But Sajin is still up, so it's not disaster. They trade their 2 kills, 2 lives for 1 kill onto DevQ. So that was really interesting. Truffy's caught out DevQ. DevQ walked into the bush where they had vision, and DevQ still managed to get the kill.
Yep. So I mean. DevQ is a very, very mechanically skilled player all in all, and the amount of damage that he has, whereas for Truffy's, he really needs to lock on, he needs the forward barrage, he needs to prep up, he needs to ramp up for his damage, whereas DevQ fires 4 glimmer shots in your face, or just 1 or 2 glimmer shots in your face, and you are done for, and thus I guess the trade-off will be rather logical or not. But if Impunity continue making mistakes like this, it will be very, very bad. As we can tell, Nebulae is definitely looking very, very strong at this point in time.
They certainly are. Both teams rotating towards the Kraken to try and fight for it's not up yet, but try and fight for map position. And Kraken will probably spawn quite soon. 3k gold lead is still in favour of Impunity, despite the fact that it seems like they haven't won any team fights recently. They're still ahead in gold because they got the Kraken, they got some nice shutdowns as well on Traffic 9 when you die. Gonna rotate as 3 down to the shop. Infusion picked up the Kestrel, and there she is. Kraken has awakened, so now both teams fighting over this. Impunity gonna rotate through past their Crystal Sentry because Nebulae are going for the turret push strategy. Truffy's waiting in the bush, but he'll be spotted out, and DevQ is not thinking this is a good position. Impunity going to back as 3, and Nebulae probably know it. They're going to go towards the Kraken. I don't think they'll start it up because they're worried that Impunity are just waiting for them. But Nebulae, once again, going to shop. I agree, I cannot actually re-pop his infusion. He's a little bit more gold to do so, and nothing quite going to happen yet. Just waiting.
Yep, they probably just want to have all the infusions up before they find the next team fight. However, Impunity is strutting down lane at this point in time, reversing or just going back on the strategy that Nebulae comes up. Sajin face checking, or rather checking up on all 3 members of Impunity at this point in time.
Sajin in trouble. He's going to boots away, but he'll be okay. And now Angry and Truffy's are going to try and port home. But the thing is, Impunity have got a tier 3 turret to try and take. whereas Nebulae had nothing and that tier 3 target going very low. One shot is available, so I reckon Sajin needs to body block that. Nope, Kestrel's not even going to try and get the turret a bit lower. And so now Nebulae did just about defend their tier 3 turret, and now Impunity have great map control. They're just going to pop as much vision as they can. Court d'Ivoire going to miss 2 scout traps, but not too bad. And now they don't want to start the Kraken. Iron does manage to repop his infusion. Truffy's is basically fully built at this point. He's got the Piercing Shard, and you don't really need to build that into a second Broken Myth. The Piercing Shard's enough to get through the Aegis. And once again, Impunity, the same rotation. Nebulae have had enough. They're going to Water Reds in, and there's going to be Lance going in. Gauntlet comes through. Echo down. DefQ is stuck in the middle of 2 Gauntlets, but he walks out with the block. And now Blue Sea going to try and get into Sky, but there's no chance with those Gauntlets. And now the second Divine Intervention comes through. Blue Sea 912 healing. Iron is trying to do what he can. DefQ's still full health, and that is a dead Truffy. Sajin's dead as well. What can Iron do? The answer is most likely nothing. He's going to try and combat roll or impale over that wall, try and run away, and the one-shot one kill a bit early. Does get the combat roll, not quite. Ace for Impunity, and that is just going to be the game, Luxury. They've got the minions, they've got the damage, they're going to take down the base.
They will be very well played to Nebulae. They look like they almost had that game, but rotation-wise, they just did not beat Impunity to it. We saw when Impunity was marching down lane, Nebulae was just very hesitant to pop back, and when they finally actually did, the anchor turret was already taken down to half health. And what happened in the team fight was that Truffy's had burned all of his abilities on Court d'Ivoire, which is not really the target that you want to go for. And after all his abilities were down, Blue City immediately jumped on Truffy's, removed him from the fight. The next target was Sajin, and afterwards Angry Udai was just left standing.
Yeah, the double gauntlet did work quite well, but it wasn't quite enough for the Arden, for Sajin, because he managed to trap Kestrel in 2 gauntlets. Good, but Kestrel just needed 1 block to walk out of it. He might have been better off trying to trap Kestrel inside both of them, and so that then Kestrel had to either block and try and walk through 2 gauntlets at once, or Kestrel would still be stuck, and then it would be an easy kill for Lance, push them into the wall, or just easy impale, because you know exactly where Kestrel's going to be. But in the end, Impunity coming out on top. That was an extremely close game. It looked like it was Nebulae's all the way through, especially once they kept winning team fights. They kept getting turrets, they kept getting kills, but maybe the problem was objective control. They didn't get the gold mines, they didn't get Kraken at the right time, they didn't take down almost any crystal sentry charges, they didn't do anything with the aggression that they got.
Yep, definitely. So that is one thing that I guess Impunity, or the top 3 teams on the charts excels in. It's that with every kill they take away from you, they remove an objective as well. They gain so much more control as compared to you, and that is just a macro play of the game itself. But down to micro, I think competition at this level, I personally think it is rather or relatively equal throughout.
Yeah, so definitely it is going to be an equal, or at least close to equal game between Nebulae and Impunity. But the draft is ready for the second game of the series. So without further ado, let's head on into the draft.
So coming into this draft, we saw that Lance was prioritized by that of Nebulae, and I must say, in the mid-game itself, the moment Iron Gudai got the attention, bro, has got that proc as well. Impale just did so much work, so much damage for the side of Nebulae and for Trophies as well. But it's just that their team comp just not very synergetic together. Granted, they have got an Arden for the extra barrier just to keep Trophies a tad healthier, but all in all, Trophy's positioning, or rather Trophy's plays like a mage, and it needs so much more than a barrier. CCs will be good for the side of Nebulae if they are going to support Trophies and not just keep him relatively healthy. However, we do see that Grace and Lance is being banned out from the first phase.
Yeah, so the captains that were played last game are not going to be played in this game. I think the Grace ban makes sense, because if you don't want to pick it up as A-side, you generally want to pick Lance. It's much more of a flex pick. They want to ban Grace away, possibly try and get Lance, but it was banned. That means they now have to resort to possibly picking up the Kestrel again. It was a fantastic pick. It worked great on DefQ, I think they could first pick it, but that would be risky. It might make more sense to get the Catherine, maybe get Lyra, try and give your team sustain. Because if you end up in a poke war, Lyra is great. It's probably the best hero for that. They're going to go straight for the Idris. Was let through the entire first draft without being banned or picked. This game, they go, no, we need to first pick this Idris.
Yep, definitely. So Idris, he is in a rather, I must say, odd position in the Southeast Asian meta. We saw yesterday that he was played, and this time when we have, Impunity on that of the blue side, and Impunity immediately picking up that Idris. Hopefully it will be CP, because that was what the trophies brought out yesterday, and with the Protect Idris comp that Nebulae came up with, then it worked very, very effectively, allowing trophies to go for double Shatterglass, one Broken Myth, and ultimately, if I remember correctly, it was that alternating current to just sum it all up. So very good, build-ish if you are going to play him like a mage. However, a lot of times when we see a CP Idris, we see the Shatterglass, and he is mostly built like that of a CP Vox, with the Eve of Harvest for the extra sustain as well, brought out by Brand Esports yesterday. However, we will be seeing a Glaive coming out just to counter this Idris.
Yeah, Glaive picked up straight away. Probably going to be put in lane to try and pressure that Idris early game. And Glaive is seen as a counter to Idris, and he is if you can snowball early game. If you can't, then Idris late game will be far, far superior to you. So I think, Glaive has to go to the lane, and the Lyra ban this time, just to make sure that they do not go for a double sustain comp with poke with the Glaive, because that will be quite hard for Idris to shred through. As it most likely will be CP Idris, but we don't quite know yet. They can still flex it, and I would hope this Glaive isn't captain. Hope it is the lane Glaive, and the most likely pick is just an Arden now. There aren't that many captains left. Maybe they could go Finn if that's something that they're comfortable playing. If not, just pick up the Arden again. Didn't quite work last game, but it's a comfort pick, and it would work really well just to go with the Glaive to dive in.
Yep, it's either Glaive or Lance banned out. Yep, so Arden will be the next plausible choice at this point in time. There you have it. We have an Arden. So for the side of Impunity, however, I've seen, or rather looking at VG Pro itself, I am seeing that Quatervor has played quite a number of Finn. So I'm not surprised if Finn will be picked up, and there you have it. We are seeing a Finn, but then again, that is the only other roamer there that is not off tank, or like a Baptiste or a Sky roam. Yeah, don't. So
Necker and Fortress are still there, but I definitely agree with you. Finn is the only captain remaining.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, Flicker and Fortress, I guess they are workable, very niche. I would not even say niche, very off meta, all in all. But we will be seeing a Cruel coming out, so hopefully this will be a CP Idris, and of course a Cruel for the side of Impunity. This particular comp, so even if the side of Nebulae will put out a mage like that of Scarf, if not then Celeste, a Cruel will do relatively well against it.
Yeah, they definitely got a dive comp. You got CP Idris can poke, and they can dive. Yeah, I think Impunity have fallen into the trap there. The Scarf is quite good against CP Idris, can poke reasonably well. It's more of a skill matchup than anything else if you got Scarf v CP Idris. But Cruel is fantastic against Scarf. Just will dive in, will mitigate your damage, and will force you to Spitfire on him. So I do really like what Impunity have gone for here. They've got the Cruel. They'll be great on that. They've got CP Idris, who's a strong hero. And then Nebulae are like, we'll just pick Scarf because it's a comfort pick. But I don't think it's the best decision in this draft.
It is definitely not the best decision. Even if you were to ask me, I personally think that. But then again, we must also understand that Trophies as a player, he is a mage main. Even when he plays a Sky, he plays it very much like a mage. So, for me, I think a weapon Castro placed in lane would do so much better, but they risk running a double weapon comp, going up against a Cruel at least, because a Cruel DMRs you immediately go like active camo, and you can try to outpoke that of Idris in that of lane itself.
Yeah, definitely. I think weapon Kestrel could have worked, but I just really think that Scarf or Celeste was the wrong pick for Nebulae. That was exactly what Impunity wanted them to pick, and they did it. And so that kind of feels like they don't really, they just want to pick up what's comfortable. and they didn't really want to try and counterpick in the draft because Sky is still open. So they could have gone with a Sky to counter Cruel, would have worked fine. Or maybe even a weapon power petal, so a crystal power petal in the jungle with a weapon glaive lane. That would have worked really well against the Cruel, and they just would have had to snowball Idris early because Petal's great at that. So is Glaive, and that would have been a comp that would have been hard to execute because once it gets to 15 minutes, CP just destroys Petal. But it could have been something. It is a win condition that they could have executed. Whereas now it feels like, well, early game they're up against Cruel. They don't really want to try to be too aggressive because they've got Scarf, and late game they're up against Idris, so they're really not gonna win that. So I have to favour Impunity, but we saw Nebulae team fighting extremely well in the last game. You definitely can't put them off. And we see Boots on DefQ early on, but he's still going to just go to the back. So not using that to be aggressive. And both teams actually going to just start off defensive, and the captain's going to have a little handshake in the middle.
Yep, handshake or not, it is just down to Quartervore. Quartervore is usually the one that comes out with the first hand, and the other team just reciprocate. However, we will be seeing Quartervore playing relatively passive, very unlike him as a player, but of course as the hero, and that would be Finn. Very nice route over there. On Blue City, but as a player, as a Finn at least, you cannot quite afford to just be very aggressive because you do not have, the escape ability like other roamers have, like that of Grace with the movement speed, and the mid treant will just be given up over to the side of Nebulae.
Started up and secured by Nebulae by the Scarf Spitfire, just to make sure that Impunity don't try and steal that away, because Cruel, if he manages to get his weakness stacks, will probably be able to secure anything, but without it, he's pretty useless. And now Truffy's just rotating up to lane. There's obviously quite a big wave after you do the rotation where you start backs with your jungler. The lane gets quite large and pushed. DefQ is not deciding to try and push with this massive wave. He just wants to get some farm. So Impunity deciding to farm up, but DefQ is not going to get anything because Impunity's already taken his backs. So probably not the best rotation from DefQ. He doesn't actually get much from it at all. And Finn's probably going to get ambient from this treant. So DefQ really just gave up any chance of aggression against Truffy's because that was a massive wave. So if DefQ fights, the minions are on his side. Truffy's doesn't want to fight because he wants to farm, and so he could have got a lot more from that. And now Impunity are going to try and steal away this treant. Luxie's most likely going to be able to secure it.
Oh wait, there is something rather peculiar about the roles that they are dedicated to the players. At least we are seeing Trophies for the first time in Vainglory 8 history not playing a mage, but playing a very big weapon cat.
Trophies isn't playing a mage, and Vainglory isn't playing a glaive. This is definitely a very interesting Nebulae to swap those two seemingly comfort picks around, so that Trophies is going for an assassin, and Vainglory is going for the mage, because they just almost always play the exact opposite of that. But yeah, they're defensive from both sides early on. That's expected with the CP Idris. It's expected with the Scarf. But I wouldn't be surprised if once Blue Sea hits level 6, there's going to be some lane ganks who try and force the afterburn from Glaive, then go in with it from Hell's Heart. And Vainglory could be in trouble. Blue Sea's not going to be too aggressive, pop the vision, and get the Elder Treant. DefQ's going to go a little bit low in lane, but nothing really too much as Truffy's farms up and Vainglory ports home.
Yeah, but if you actually go think about it, Scarf, although has been relatively...
We're going to see a spell sword on Cruel. I've just seen Blue City has picked up a tier 2 an Hourglass. It's tier 1 Hourglass. He's going spell sword first item on Cruel. What do you think, Luxury? Do you like it?
Well, I guess Cruel do run into some energy issues, and with that extra energy regen coming out from, the passive of spell sword, I guess it will work well, all in all. But the lack of burst from a DMR when you have the tension bow, and of course when you have your poison shave for that mortal wound, and of course that that extra life steal that you receive may hurt Blue City, but we just can only see what he can actually bring out with a spell sword on that of Cruel. But on my point, there you go, Impunity being very, very aggressive, putting out a lot of damage on that of Quartervore.
Luke's rotating up, trying to get his Shadows and Power Beat perk up. He's just going to try and run around and see if he can catch out Vainglory, but no one's level 6. There isn't really a need for Impunity to fight, and Nebulae will easily be able to outpoke them at this point. Idris still has actually picked up Frostburn, so he has got diversion paths, but will not really be able to deal much considerable damage. Druffies could be called out, can afterburn away and get the Vanguard, and so not too much coming. And yeah, there's really nothing that either team can do to force a fight until BluXD hits level 6, or really until Saijin hits level 6 for Nebulae. Even with an afterburn, they can still kind of just block and run away, whereas for Impunity, they need BluXD to hit 6 for that from Hell's Heart.
Yep, Blue City definitely going for Spell Sword as the first item, holding on to 950 gold there. So, rather, I guess it's interesting all in all, but I saw as well in one of the gameplay when I was looking through history yesterday, I saw Blue City actually,
there's going to be the afterburn onto DefQ, but not quite enough damage. The Spitfire is blocked by Quarter Bottom. DefQ will be alive. He has got his Shimmer Strike now, so he'll be able to play. If they do that afterburn again, he could try and just ultimate inside Quarter Ball when the afterburn comes through. It's a little bit hard to do. If you time it correctly, that's a pretty easy way to get away. Now Cruel has got the From Hell's Heart available, and obviously Druffies. So Angry Guy has got the Dragon's Breath, which doesn't really do much at level 1. You need to wait till that level 3 Dragon's Breath until it does any considerable damage, and no one's going to fight. Once again, 5 minutes in, gold is dead even, and both teams are hoping that their late game is better. Paul's got his Spell Sword, going to work towards block next, so I'm really interested to see how this works, because it's not as much damage as Solar Blade, it's not as much utility as some other stuff. Druffy's going with the afterburn, and is able to secure the Elder Triumph. There's going to be a stun on Saijin, but the Dragon's Breath coming through, not going to do that much work, but Quartervart is being chunked down. Truffy's needs a little bit more damage to secure the kill, but Truffy's manages to fountain himself and get away. Both fountains used, both teams backing off.
Yep, and I was about to say as well, yesterday, if I'm not wrong, when I was going through the pro player history of Blue City, I think, if I remember correctly, sorry Impunity if I got this wrong, but I think Blue City was the one that went with a 2-spell sword on a weapon kestrel. It's either Blue City or DefQ. I found it rather interesting, so I'm not surprised as to... I mean, all in all, Spell Sword is it's an item that has not been put into much use, although it has got an incredible passive, all in all, and it's the second most damaging item, so...
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of damage onto Saijin. He's actually falling low. Has not quite got the fountain for another 20 seconds, so he's going to have to back off. And once again, we're just seeing a bit of aggression, and then everyone's like, nah, we don't want to go too deep, let's just back off, let everyone farm up, let's get to late game power spikes. But BluXD's going to try and change that. Truffy's after run away and punt him back. Very defensive from Nebulae, and they could possibly lose a bit of damage on this tier 1 turret if Impunity wants to try and siege it. Instead, they're going to try and steal away some farm. Angudai unable to secure his mid-treant, and now DefQ is waiting in the bush, going to be flared out, and Truffy's taking a lot of poke. Vanguard will be enough, but no, they're going to use the fountain just to keep him, make sure he's alive. Pump back a minion for CS. Now Angudai is going to have to rotate up to lane. Nope, Impunity don't want to push it. They want to get the gold mine instead. The Crawl's going to solo that while DefQ's just trying to keep Nebulae at bay. And Saijin doesn't expect anything, so Crawl's probably going to be able to get this for free. But will DefQ fall in return? And Nebulae, I think they think Crawl's going to be farming his back, so that would make a lot of sense. And so they're going to try and push the wave in. And I think this will be free for BluXD. Nope, afterburn onto DefQ. Will he fall? One more basic from Truffy's. Will secure the kill. Actually, no, it's Saijin with the Vanguard that gets that. And now Nebulae up into lane. They aren't going to try and push it, so that is a free gold mine for Crawl. Free gold lead going to be pushing into Impunity's favour.
Oh, wow. I mean, you say free gold lead, but it is just down to 500 gold, actually 18,000 over to the side of Nebulae with 17.6 thousand gold. So not an incredible gold lead, to be honest, and I was chuckling and I was laughing inside because of how incredibly slow that gold mine was taken and how oblivious the entirety of Nebulae was to the gold mine being taken. I mean, granted, DefQ was a very, very enticing and, tempting bait that was in lane alone. So I guess, going for DefQ was, all in all, the good choice at a point in time for Nebulae, but had they have got a little more vision, then they'll definitely spot out the fact that Blue City was just taking a gold mine, and the fact that Quartervore has always been in lane since minute 1 and suddenly disappearing. I think Nebulae should have actually just found out or spot out that gold mine was being taken.
Yeah, it definitely was interesting that they didn't even think of it as an option for try and solo that. They were expecting just be farming his jungle, and they probably thought, oh, take his back, so he'll be up in lane soon, and he just wasn't. Yeah, Defcu with a broken myth second item already completed, whereas Impunity obviously in the jungle only Frostburn, and so it's really good for Impunity that their Crystal Mage is far ahead, and Trophies has actually got Tension Boat and Soul Blade, and he's working towards Shiv, weirdly enough, to try and counter the Crawl, but he hasn't got any defense. This CP is just going to shred through him very, very quickly if he doesn't build up at least tier one shield, because you kind of need that against an Idris. And at Luke's, he's caught by a scout trap. There's going to be a little bit of poke and buying Impunity. That is a horrible goop placement. Luke's using the Nebulae's rush at the exact wrong time for Impunity. But the tier 1 turret taken by Trophies so easily, and of course he's Glaive with an afterburn. He hasn't got a block, so if the Force Accord did come through from Court d'Ivoire, he would be in trouble, but he has an afterburn. So that was well played by Nebulae. A little bit of a bait and switch, and they get the tier 1 turret, so the gold just barely in their favour. Once again, it's just dead even.
It is dead even, and I must say in that team fight alone, very good play coming out from Trophies, opting to not join his team in that team fight and just push on with this turret. And I must say, and this game is rather stagnant, so they are definitely vying for the late game, and it's just down to who has got a better late game. But the amount of damage coming out from the Chakram is just not as terrifying as opposed to when you have a CP Idris and you just push your advantage in that early game. However, maybe Impunity will be looking for a team fight.
Yeah, definitely. They're all three in lane. Idris with the double Chakram, putting so much work onto that turret. 385 with each hit, and so if Nebulae don't engage, that turret is going to so quickly. 343 now on the turret with a few broken mid-stacks falling, and yeah, easily tier 1 turret because Nebulae didn't want to fight, and now they're in a bad position. I think Saijin should have gone in with the gauntlet a lot earlier, because you cannot just let someone siege your turret down. You should try and fight them, especially when they're not ahead in gold and you can afford to fight. I think it would have been a really smart decision to just go in whenever they try to push the next wave. Just try and fight. Court d'Ivoire hasn't used the Force Accord yet in this game, but he's working towards Echo. But Crucible is on Saijin, so it'll most likely be blocked. No, it will not. He misses the Crucible, and he's not even going to use it. He's going to wait till now. But Scarf is already dead. What are you doing? Traffic's going to go very low, and now Saijin most likely going to fall under Crystal Sentry. That is a disaster for Nebulae. Impunity get the lead.
That was, and I guess, Court d'Ivoire on this Finn, I think he plays it very well, to be honest. He holds on to that Force Accord to running and fleeing enemies rather than just using it as a form of engage. And honestly, we saw right there, it's that, the entirety of Impunity really do not want to just dive in and be caught out of position, because that is what the Glaive will excel at in the end, yeah? So Glaive comes in, afterburn you away into his team of 3, and that is basically diving.
Get the lead.
Yeah.
There you are back. You're disconnected for
Sorry. So basically, Glaive really want to go in and punch you out. So with that in mind, Impunity really do not want to just dive onto your team and fight. Instead, they want to engage and hold on to that Force Accord just for fleeing enemies or fleeing praise, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. That is the different ways you can play. You can use your Force Accord. You either save it for when they're trying to run away, or you save it when it's available. And saving it for when they were trying to run away seemed to work. Saijin wasn't really focusing. He was walking towards the lane, probably looking somewhere else on the map. And so now Nebulae need to try and win the next team fight. They lost such a big gold. They lost so much gold because of that team fight. They went down about 4k after being dead even because of the tier 2 turret being gone and the gold mine. Now Echo's being picked up by Court d'Ivoire. We expect that to be on the Force Accord, because if Impunity gets pulled in, then he's probably going to die very quickly. Same with Trophies, actually. Trophies going completely glass cannon, going 4 damage items and no defense, which is very different on the Glaive. You normally see Glaive go 2, maybe 3 damage items, but get yourself an Atlas, get yourself an Aegis, just tank up. What do you think about this build from Trophies?
Well, a mage Glaive. I mean, I've seen Glaives that play like this before. They just want to rush the damage item, and at the last item that will keep them safe, they will just rely on the slumbering husk. But honestly, looking over at the side of Impunity, they definitely have got, you know, better item building decision. All in all, as a team, you see DevQ that Aegis going for that 4th damage item, whereas you see Blue City already having that Atlas, that Aegis as well, and of course, not really caring much about the amount of defense he has, but how much sustain in terms of how long he can stay in team fight. And that really just explains as to why he opted for the spell sword rather than tension bow and the poison shift.
Sajin is out of position a little bit, Finn, using the Echo. Force to Corp was actually missed. There was no block used, and that is another Force to Corp. Missed the block by Sajin. Gauntlet comes down, stunning up Fluxty, but Angry Die is so low on the backline, he does not quite fall, but Truffy's will, and so will Angry Die with the From Hell's Heart fade away for the ace, and Impunity once again are going to take another target, and possibly even the Kraken. They're not going to try and win, are they, Luxury? They're only 15 minutes into the game.
Well, I mean, they have got the damage to win, and they have the amount of tank required if they ran out of minions, and there you have it. The second game will go over to Impunity.
They're onto the vein, they're trying it. Bluesty's going to be able to get this, and that is game, as you said, to Impunity. Break that one down, Luxury. What happened to Nebulae?
Well, honestly, Nebulae just allowed Impunity just farm up way too much, and with the amount of damage that Trophies really is building, he could have just easily went on top of DevQ. He had so many opportunities, and of course Angry Die on this Scarf as well. What Scarf really excels in that on